The latest intra-family feud between the president and former staffers has reached the boiling point, this one between Trump and his former counsel, Don McGahn. The president slamming McGahn on Twitter, writing, "I was not going to fire Bob Mueller and did not fire Bob Mueller. In fact, he was allowed to finish his report with unprecedented help from the Trump administration. Actually, lawyer Don McGahn had a much better chance of being fired than Mueller. Never a big fan." This tweet came after reports that at least twice in the past month, White House officials asked McGahn to publicly say he did not believe that the president obstructed justice, but McGahn said no. Joining me now is Elliot Williams, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General in the Obama administration and former counsel to the Judiciary Committee, and Danny Weiss, former Chief of Staff to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. So, Elliot, NBC News confirmed that the Trump administration pressed McGahn to get on message with the president concerning obstruction, but he wouldn't do it. How do you interpret this request from the White House?
What's remarkable is that it tracks completely the conduct with respect to Don McGahn that we saw in Section 2 of the report, in the second portion of the report on obstruction. If you notice, there was a portion that specifically lays out, the president trying to enlist Don McGahn to go out and spin stories with respect to the firing of Mueller. And this was essentially a continuation of that. It's the same conduct. Now, could you charge the president or anybody with, with obstruction or tampering or something for this attempt to reach McGahn? Probably not. But it gets back to this question of was it sound judgment to have the White House counsel and try to enlist him or conscript him into being a press advocate to spin a story that was incredibly bad for the president. So again, it's just really bad judgment. But we've seen a lot of bad judgment from the president and the folks at the senior levels of the White House. And I just think it's unfortunate I don't think McGahn's hands are completely clean in all of this, but I think it's unfortunate that his role as White House lawyer or White House counsel got twisted once again by the president.
Well, he's become the latest person who has had to say no. And Danny, Speaker Pelosi said last week that she thinks actually the president is self-impeaching, but she's not on board with impeachment per se. So what is the speaker's play here?
The speaker is relying on the committees at the moment, particularly the Judiciary Committee, to carry out a thorough oversight effort. And that's really critical. It's critical that Congress be able to conduct its legitimate constitutional oversight responsibilities. That's what they're trying to do here in the case of Don McGahn, and they're going to give enough time for the White House counsel, former White House counsel, and the White House to negotiate with the committee lawyers. Hopefully they will reach a resolution before May 21st, and Don McGahn will testify. In my opinion, I think he will testify before the committee, and he should testify before the committee. There is time for the House Democrats to use all of their resources to conduct oversight, and that's really critical. When you look at this in a larger issue, Chris, it's the contempt that the White House is showing for Congress is just like the contempt that they are showing for the American people. They want. I was just going to say, it is in specific regard to health care. This is an excellent example. Not only are they wanting to withhold legitimate information and inquiries from the Congress, they're trying to take away people's rights to coverage from pre-existing conditions. That's the same kind of contempt, and I think that's what the Congress is really trying to make the point. This is all one part of one activity.
Yeah, and there's difference, obviously, big, wide difference between illegality and what you call as maybe a bad decision, Elliot. President Trump says, and he has said for a long time, it was part of his campaign before he was elected, he only hires the best people. And then the Washington Post just today compiling this list of the 17 best people that Donald Trump has hired and then attacked. What do you make of this? I mean, It just goes on and on. McGahn just being the latest that includes Wray, Sessions, Bannon, Tillerson, Powell, Cohen, Bossie, and John Kelly, too.
And I think, Chris Wray is the latest. And in fact, I'd said it on television about a week ago and felt bad about it, that I felt I'd gone too far in saying that I thought Chris Wray would be the next one to be under the president's watchful eye. But again, now he's on the outs, too. Consistently, individuals who tell the president no, people who challenge the president on these basic and most fundamental rule of law questions all seem to be on the outs. there's a striking consistency between McMaster and Wray and Sessions and all of these individuals who simply told the president no, or, by no or recusing, as was in the case of Jeff Sessions. And so what's unfortunate is that public servants keep being, and this is, it's not a partisan point. These are highly partisan people, but people who aren't deemed sufficiently loyal to the president all seem to be on the outs. And I think the FBI director is now the latest casualty of that.
Elliot Williams, Danny Weiss, great talking to both of you. Thank you. And coming up, playing it safe. Joe Biden's team keeps the candidate on message, but can that last? This is Andrea Mitchell reports only on MSNBC.